What's up my friends, welcome back to the channel, and on today's video we're looking at a very popular shoe. At least the last version was extremely popular. So I'm expecting that this version is going to be right up there with popularity. We're talking about the On Cloudmonster 2. But there's a couple things that you're going to need to know before you go and buy this shoe, so stick around. All right, let's get started off with those disclosures. This video is in partnership with my friends over at Roadrunner Sports. Now, the On Cloudmonster 2 was sent to me for the purpose of review. However, no one over at Roadrunner Sports has told me what to say. They don't have any editorial privileges, and all the thoughts and opinions are my own. With that said, if you want to pick up a pair of the On Cloudmonster 2, it'll cost you $180. And of course, I will put a link in the show notes in case you want to pick up a pair from Roadrunner Sports. So let's get into it. Now, I've put enough volume in the Cloudmonster 2 to form some opinions, the good and the bad. Now, don't get all worked up. It is mostly good. There's just a couple of things that I think you need to know. In fact, the biggest thing you can probably avoid right off the bat, and I think we'll talk about that right now, and that is sizing. Now, originally I was sent my usual size that I've worn in a lot of other On shoes, and that's a US men's size 13. However, when I put my foot into the size 13 Cloudmonster 2, it was just way too big. In fact, I thought it was even too big for me to drop half a size. So I dropped a full size down to a US size 12, and you know what? Fits me like a dream. Now, me wearing a US size 12 is not unheard of. There are some brands where I do wear a US size 12. What's funny is that all my other On shoes have been a size 13 and they fit well. So I want you to keep that in mind when you're picking up a pair for yourself. I definitely recommend going down at least half a size, maybe a full size in the Cloudmonster 2. Now, the On Cloudmonster 2 is a daily trainer, right? Specifically, it's a max cushion daily trainer. When I hold this up, you can see we do have a big chunk of this midsole foam here, making it max cushion. Cloudmonster 2 has a 6mm drop, which I think is pretty ideal. Like, it's right in the middle. It's not too low, it's not too high. It's the Goldilocks of drops. But because we do have this big stack eye, there is a lot of shoe here. I mean, the name gives it away, right? Cloudmonster. And On actually claims that a US men's size 9 will tip the scale at 10.6 ounces or 300 grams. However, in my size, US men's size 12, it tips the scale at 12 ounces or 339 grams. So yes, it's a little on the heavy side, but guys, to be totally honest, it's not that heavy. Not when we're comparing against other daily trainers. It's always going to be heavy if we compare it against race day shoes, but this is not that. And when the Cloudmonster 2 is on my foot, it actually carries its weight really well. So that's going to be a product of all the components of the shoe working together with the geometry. Oh, and before we get started, I want to tell you that the Cloudmonster 2 is using a total of 82% recycled materials in the entire shoe. The upper alone is 100% recycled polyester. So On really has brought their A game to the sustainability front as well as the looks department. I mean, just like every other On shoe, just look at that. It does look pretty sharp, doesn't it? But I'm getting away from myself. Let's start at the top. Let's work our way down. Look at this heel collar, just like a daily trainer. Lots of padding, not too much. It's actually a very comfortable amount of padding around the heel, and there was a nice step-in feel. The heel counter is very rigid. I didn't have any heel slip in the Cloudmonster 2. The upper is a very thin, breathable mesh. As far as overlays, especially on the lateral side, we have the logo, this overlay with On Running coming around the side, and then following around the medial side. There are some underlays coming around the toe box just to keep that upper off your foot, and then we have the reinforcement along the eyelet chain. So let's talk about the eyelet chain for a minute, and I'm going to hold it up so you can see that. I don't know if it's going to focus, but I can overlay something to show you. These laces are woven through almost like shock cords. Now, they're not actually shock cords because they're not elastic, but that's kind of what it looks like. And because there is no grippiness to these shock cord loops, I found the laces were very easy to slide through them. Okay, hold that thought. Also, the upper on the Cloudmonster 2 is very roomy. It's a high volume upper. This is going to work fantastic if you have a little wider feet, but not too wide to actually go to a wide shoe. I think the Cloudmonster 2 is going to fit you like a dream. I have fairly narrow feet, so when I put my foot into a high volume shoe like the Cloudmonster 2, I really have to cinch these laces together in order to get a good midfoot lockdown. So coming back to the lace loops and the laces, it's very difficult to pull these laces and actually get them to stay in place. Now, of course, I did it. You just have to be a little more mindful when you're tying the laces so you don't let those laces inadvertently slip back through and loosen up. But even when I did get the lockdown where I thought it should be, like the laces were tight enough across the top of my foot where I thought the shoe was going to stay in place, overall, the lockdown was not the most secure lockdown I've ever felt. Now, don't get me wrong, that almost sounds like I'm really bagging on it, and it's not that bad. I was able to put on the Cloudmonster 2, tie my laces, and go out, and I ran for hours and hours and hours with absolutely no issues. I never had to to retie the laces, they didn't come undone, but it's almost like that midfoot lockdown was not as secure enough as I might ideally like. Does that make sense? I found there was a lot of room in the toe box, but not too much. It felt really good to be able to move my feet. And overall, I like what On has done here for me personally. And look, I know On can't make shoes just for me, but because I have slightly narrow feet, I would ideally like a slightly less voluminous upper. I think it would just make the shoe fit my foot a little better. Let's come down to the midsole. Now this year they're using a dual density midsole, the helium superfoam. We have a compressed version here on top, and we have the CloudTech voids right here on the bottom. And then sandwiched in between these two pieces of the helium superfoam is a new reworked speedboard. Now On has reworked the material, they've reworked the shape, and they've done this so the speedboard works more efficiently with the midsole material. And I gotta say it works pretty well. But before we talk about the ride, let's just come down to the outsole. I love this. There's plenty of rubber up here on the forefoot. There is more than enough here on the heel. We've got some exposed Helion superfoam in the middle. But even on this exposed midsole foam, I'm not seeing any wear. So I think this shoe is going to stand up to quite a lot. Now the shoe does have that speedboard inside, so it's not going to be as flexible as a shoe without a speedboard or a plate, but it's not super rigid and I'm still able to bend the shoe quite easily. Before we talk about ride, let's talk about what this shoe compares to. And for $180, the On Cloudmonster 2 is a premium daily trainer. And it's on the higher end of prices as far as premium daily trainers go. And yes, $180 is very expensive, but I would say that you get a little more with the Cloudmonster 2 than you do from other premium daily trainers from some other brands. Now, typically when we're talking about premium daily trainers, we're talking about very plush shoes, tons of padding all over. They're definitely on the weighty side. So as far as how this shoe feels on my foot and how it feels underfoot, I think On has actually done something pretty good, because the running feel, how this shoe feels on my foot is slightly firmer than the competition. And that's a good thing. I don't want you to be scared away by saying it's a firm ride. It's a firm ride, but it's not on the too firm end of that spectrum. It's a pleasant firmness. Now, as soon as I got this shoe, I opened it, took it out of the box, put it on my feet, and I went out and I ran 20 miles. And I think that was a pretty good test for this shoe because it performed like a champ. As I already said, I didn't have to retie the laces or anything. I had no hot spots. It was just comfortable and it felt good on my foot. Now, towards the end of the run, I was able to pick up the pace a little and the shoe performed well. And really, that's what I want in a daily trainer. I don't always feel that way in some of those super plush daily trainers from some other brands. So I think the blend or the type of firmness that is in the Cloudmonster 2 combined with that speedboard makes it a recipe for success. And of course, if you have already run in the original Cloudmonster, I think you're going to be very pleased with the Cloudmonster 2. Also, if you don't like an incredibly plush ride, you know, that kind of plush that can feel sometimes like it's zapping your energy, you certainly don't get that with the Cloudmonster 2. The firmness and that speedboard translates to nice, smooth transitions. And when it comes time to pick up the pace, it lets you do that. But let's be clear. Not pick up the pace like race pace or interval pace. I'm talking about maybe strides at the end of an easy run, or like I did, picking up the pace at the end of a long run. All in all, I'd say the On Cloudmonster 2 is best suited for easy runs, although that speedboard does make picking up the pace feel a little better. And here's what I found surprising in my testing is that when I took this shoe out when I wanted to go for a recovery effort, the Cloudmonster 2 still felt pretty good. I wasn't sure about it when I first put it on my foot. I thought maybe it would be a little firm, but as I already said, it's a very pleasant firmness. It's definitely cushioned enough and definitely protective enough to go out from recovery paces up to easy paces to definite long run paces. So guys, I want to hear from you. Did you run in the original Cloudmonster? Are you thinking of picking up a pair of the Cloudmonster 2? If you haven't had either, what is your current daily trainer or long run shoe of choice? Let me know in the comments. But for now, it's Matt B. This has been my review of the On Cloudmonster 2. Be kind, be happy, run well. I'll see you in a couple of days.